Hey guys, my name is Logan Shinholster, and in this video, we're going to be talking about Contractor Growth Network, which doesn't sound exactly the same as Contractor Sales Academy, but the two companies work together on a lot of things. So don't mind the name, definitely watch the content because it's the exact same message. I hope you like it. Check it out. Hey everyone, on today's episode, Alex and I are talking about the taboo subject of money. Should you talk about it? And if you are afraid to talk about it, does that mean that you're afraid to have it? Hey everyone, welcome back to Contractor Growth Network. I'm Logan.
And I'm Alex.
And today we are talking about a post that I put up on my personal Facebook page yesterday or a couple days ago. And it's a true or false. People who are uncomfortable talking about money are uncomfortable having money. One more time. People who are uncomfortable talking about money are uncomfortable having money. Alex, you're the one that wanted to do the podcast about this. So what are your thoughts?
My thoughts is I was false off the reason because I don't think it's necessarily they feel uncomfortable about talking about it. It's just they don't have it. So then they have nothing to share, or they have nothing to, they don't really have any experience, or they don't want to say that they have no money, which also can be considered true. But I think for people that also have a lot of money, on the flip side, it's false because they don't want to get taken advantage of. And as soon as you say you have money, people that don't have money will come to you and all this stuff and take advantage of you. And it's kind of like, well, I don't want to, say that I have more than you, and then it brings up this whole can of worms. So I think people that don't talk about it aren't necessarily uncomfortable with it. It's just they're uncomfortable with the repercussions of what either talking about money could bring.
Okay, so let's go into that. So let's say somebody is uncomfortable saying what their salary is.
Mm-hmm.
Yet they drive a car that you and I both can look up and see that it's an $80,000 car.
Mm-hmm.
So how is that different?
I guess it's, you assume, I think it just takes it from like he's becoming, or they're becoming arrogant to what they're saying, and not like, if we could do the research, be like, I know you have money, you have $1 million house, you have an $80,000 car, but it's not him necessarily saying it. So I guess it's more like stooping to that other person's level, if you will, like not saying, this guy's flaunting his wealth, this guy's rich, I can't hang out with him, but it's like, he's just a normal dude, or she,
So if I tell you how much I make, is that different, I'm guessing, than if you ask me how much I make and I answer it, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's, yeah.
So if somebody asks the other person and says, what are you making? And they're okay with talking about it, does that make them arrogant?
No, I don't think so. I think it's all about how you present it. I think if someone asks you and you're like, oh, I don't mind talking about money, yeah, it's this, and it's like they don't really care if you think it's large or small. It's
okay. So what if you ask somebody how much they make and they say, yeah, I'd rather just not say? Is that because
I would think
they're uncomfortable having the money, or is that because they don't want you to look at them differently, whether it's a higher number or a lower number? What would be the reason for that behind that?
I could see it going both ways, but me personally, I would think it just be, I don't want to make that. I don't want them to judge me off that it's high or low. I'm not one of those people that is secretive about money, but I could see how other people would be like, I don't want to talk about it because I'm embarrassed by it, or I don't want to embarrass you by it.
Interesting. Okay. Now, with that being said, and this is what somebody posted in the group yesterday, or on the post yesterday, was it's only an issue when there's a discrepancy, like when one person makes significantly more than the other person. So do you agree with that, yes or no, Alex?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah,
okay.
100%.
Now, if one person makes 100 million and the other person makes $1 million, by all meaning and standards, they're both well off.
Mm-hmm.
But one makes 100 times more than the other. So does that principle still stay true?
I don't think so. I think it's, they're both millionaires, so it's kind of like, oh, you can make a joke about it almost.
So at what level? Because there's like science behind the fact that if you make anything over like 70 or 75,000, it's not like money is not directly proportional or related to your happiness. So at what point does that number, because you said they're both millionaires, but what if one made 800,000, the other one made 100 million? Is that a big difference because they haven't hit that M word yet?
No, I think it's because they're still upper class,
Yeah.
different stages of it. I think it's got to be like the class system. I would even say, if it's upper to middle class, I think that's even fishy. Like, I think some people that's like 50-50 on if you would say it. When you get to lower
So,
class, I doubt people would say it.
because I think the 1% is like 400,000 is like what they make.
Mhm.
So that means that I think upper middle class is like 55 grand a year. I think
Yeah,
it's like technically upper middle class. So
yeah.
55 grand to 100 million. I guess, like, would you say once you hit that 1%, like once you make like a few 100,000, that's when it's okay to talk about it more so?
Not that I think it's okay to talk about it. I think even upper middle class, you could talk about it. But I think if you hit that top 1%, I think your, your give a shit meter kind of goes out the window, and you're kind of like, I could talk about it. I have it. I'm not afraid. Um, you know, if someone seems like they could get offended easily about it. Maybe I won't,
Mhm.
but maybe I will. I don't know. So, but I think if you're in that upper middle class, I think you're, well, I'm not gonna, you know, see this guy at the grocery store. He's driving a Maserati. I'm not gonna. But if he asks me how much I make, and I'll be like, not as much as you. Like that'll probably be the comment. But yeah, I'm 50-50 about it. I think.
What do you mean 50-50 about it?
Like for me, I don't really care, but I think for like other people, if they think it's low and they get self-conscious about it, then they won't say it. But if they think it's high, or they think it's like, I think I'm doing well, and they say it and someone laughs in their face, that might deter them, be like, oh, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't say it to people that think that they're in that top 1%. Maybe I'll just say it to people in my own class.
So growing up, did your dad talk to you about, like, did you know like what your dad made or like how the business was doing growing up?
Not like numbers, but I knew that it was
Hmm.
doing pretty well, decent. Yeah, and he knew if it wasn't like if there was a bad month or something like that. But it wasn't like dollars and cents. But you knew it was open.
Because I know a lot of it, it's like your religion, not religious, or religious as well, but like also your political affiliations like are heavily swayed by your parents. And I'm curious if like that's how money is viewed as well, because I grew up in a household where money was discussed. Like,
Mhm.
we generally knew like what both parents made, how, if we went on vacation, how much something like that cost. And it wasn't like this is how much money we're spending on you. It's if you want to do these things with your family, this is what it's going to cost. This is kind of what we make to make it happen. So it's almost like they were like showing us the like I lived a very privileged upbringing, like the life that this is what if you want this, you can have it, but just be aware that you've got to make a certain amount and you've got to do a certain level of, I guess, output to make the money to get there. So for us, we were just very aware of it and very open. We talked about stocks at a young age, how that works, compounding interest, little things like that. So I'm very fortunate, I feel, that I had
Mhm.
that background where I had, both parents were very pro open discussion about money. Even though my mom has a lot of those like old school, like, kids should be seen but not heard. Um, like all those old school mannerisms, because that's what she grew up on. So she doesn't openly talk about money, but like with us as a family, like we all kind of knew. So I was fortunate,
Mhm.
but I also grew up from that household. So I'm open about talking with money, whether somebody makes, 20 grand a year or 20 million a year. Like, it doesn't really, I don't look at somebody and judge them based on how much they make. And then I
Yeah.
guess for me, it's also different. Like when I talk to a business owner, like I need to know how much they're making for the marketing side of things.
Mhm.
So if they're like a $5 million company, and I don't go, okay, well, what are you actually making? And behind the scenes, they're making, they're putting $20,000 into their pocket off 5 million. Then there's a bigger issue than marketing. It's not a marketing issue. There's something else going on. So I ask
Yeah.
those questions, but to me, I feel like I have to, or I should, because I want to help them make the best decision for them. So maybe that's also made me a little bit more open to talking about the idea of it, with not just potential clients, but also like people that I interact with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of the clients we work with, I think a lot of them are open about talking about money, or at least like the ones that become very successful, at least. And I think there's something to that. I think your dad talks about it a lot on the CSA podcast. It's like if you're open about it, you accept it. You accept all aspects of that, whether you're really successful or you're epic failure. You accept it, and it's kind of like helps you move on. I think I see a lot of translation in that. Because if you're trying to hide it, I feel like you're not admitting your failure when you get to that point. Because everybody fails at some point.
Yeah, and money it's odd, because you have like, especially like our like millennial generation, like it almost seems like it has like not demonized money, but like it doesn't matter as much. Like it used to be, I think in our parents' generation, like it was very get a job that pays well, whether you love it or you hate it, doesn't matter. As long as it pays well, you can provide for the family and you're good. While with us and the millennials, what somebody makes is less important, and what seems like more important is like, does your job pay you 80 grand a year? It's does your job let you work from home on Fridays? Like the prestige level of like where people work, to me it seems like it's less about the money side and more about like, do you have unlimited PTO? Do you get work from home? Do you guys get a dog stipend at work? Like random stuff like that, but like that is almost like how people's workplaces are it seems like are now judged. And
Yeah,
maybe
I
I'm
think
off, but that's just what it seems like.
no, I agree. I think it goes by case. I think, but like I think you're spot on. I think this new generation, the millennials, whatever we are, the I think that's 100%. I think the amount of people that are money motivated, I think, is decreasing. Every year somebody gets born. I think a lot of people are more just experience motivated and am I having a good time? Am I enjoying my life? And then the money is a secondary thing, which there's nothing wrong with that. And I think, but also I think I know a lot of people that are afraid to say how much they actually pay for an apartment, and I'm kind of dumbfounded on that because I'm like I'm just trying to see how you pay. So maybe I move into that area. But people, because I don't think they think about money, do they even know? Do they even know what's coming out of their account? Like that's a scary part on the flip side. People not being on top of it.
Yeah, and I think you're right on that, because that's what a lot of the contractors who don't job cost. This is a revelation that I had where I was talking with some business owners, and they all talked about, and these weren't contractors, they're different. So this is like a small business wide problem, but they said like, yeah, my bookkeeper sends me all these numbers at the end of the month, but like I never look at them. I guess it would make sense for me to start to look at them. And in my mind, I check QuickBooks every single day. I look to see what's in the bank account every single day, because if a credit card goes down, I don't want to wait a month to go, oh, by the way, last month you owed it. Like, I want to jump on top of that. I want to make sure everything's going well, but then also it allows me to like, if I know how much is in the bank each day, what decisions, if somebody calls me up and says, hey, I got a great new product for you, you want to try it out, I know how much is in the bank. Like I know that. So I asked these people, I said, I'm curious. I was like, I'm very money motivated, and I also check QuickBooks every single day, so I know where the money went from the previous day. Are you guys money motivated? And they all sidestepped the question. And that's when I kind of realized that it dawned on me that I think a lot of people that don't know their numbers, and I'm not saying like, like down to the penny what it costs per like man hour to like send a guy out to something, but like for the most part, like to not know how much you're going to make at the end of the year when you're like 9 months into the year, like that's odd to me. And I don't think it's a laziness thing, and I don't think it's a lack of discipline thing. I think either A, you're scared to see what the numbers show, or B, you've never had money before, so you're uncomfortable learning how much you're actually making.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think if a good example is if you don't know your year over year, like if you're doing better or worse throughout the year, like from last year, then I think you're either so swamped you can't even look at the books, or you're afraid to know if you're losing or winning. And I think that's going to go, and I think it's just the downward slope where it's like, if you don't know that, if you don't know your bottom line, if you don't know what your projected goal should be for growth, then I think you're just afraid to, you don't want to talk about it. You feel uncomfortable with either knowing you have that much money, like you said, or the risk of I could be losing money and I don't even know, you know, so my job
And the
costs
idea
more.
behind, yeah, that's 100% true. Like you don't want to know about it. You don't want to deal with it. And one of the crazy things is we all, as like humans, we get such a high from helping other people save money. It's like, this is what, like, referral programs always work way better. Where if I said, Alex, if you refer somebody to us, I'll give you some money and I'll give them some money. And that goes a lot further than if I just gave you all the money. So Alex, every client you send us, I'll give you $1,000 bonus. That will result in less referrals than if I said, Alex, I'll give you 500 and I'll give them 500. Or shit, Alex, I won't give you any money, but I'll give them $1,000 off. I bet that would probably work the best.
Mhm.
Because people want to help other people save money. Like I see this all the time in these contracting groups where somebody will say, hey, I'm looking for a great website. What do you guys think? And most everybody chimes in saying, hire, this person out of like somewhere overseas. It's only $150. You can save a lot of money. And it's like, well, did the person say they want to save a lot of money, or do they say they want a website that like works? Like, but that's everyone's instinct, especially with when you're lower end, because when you're trying to like scrape dollars and cents together, your mindset is how can I save as much as I can? So you start to do that on other people, and it becomes this negative. Like I would say some of the Facebook groups that I'm in, I absolutely hate being in them because like it's all about saving money and penny pinching. And the other half that I'm in, I love it because they're all about investing. Like, yeah, this program is $10,000 and it may not give you results today, but there may just be one golden nugget that somewhere down the line you're going to make $150,000 off of it. It's going to happen in 3 years, and you're going to go, well, I wasted 10 grand, but it's going to pay off. And that's how I've been with all these programs. Like this year alone, I probably spent about 90 grand on different programs to help us get where we are. And so far, a lot of these programs, like there's not like a direct ROI where it's like, because of this one thing that I learned, this is what happened. But now that we're around these people, overall as a company, I mean, I think you see it, we're growing big time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because of this one, like, oh, this is what you should do with your ad. It's the fact that I'm surrounded by people. I'm a tiny fish in a massive pond. And when I like surround myself with those people, money, and they talk very openly about money. Like one dude, every month gives her an update of, this is how much money I made this month. And let me give you a rundown of what I did this month to add an extra $150,000 from last month's numbers. Like he, like a year and a half, like 14 or 15 months ago, he broke $100,000 in a month for the first time. And then in July 2020, he hit 735,000. So in the span of 14 or 15 months, he went from $100,000 to that's a $1.2 million operation a year to a $9 million operation a year in just over a year.
That's crazy. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I think as a company, like it's the old adage, we have to spend money to make money. I think you've done that at CGN for this whole year and turned out to be a good year for it because the pandemic. But I think we've grown by like at least 20%, if more than that, So just that alone, and that all comes from you recognizing that we have this opportunity to do it. And that's knowing your numbers, being comfortable with money, being around it. And I think it really holds people back because they don't want to know and they just continue to their old habits.
Yeah, we almost doubled our January number in June. So, and that was just a result of being around all this stuff. I know when it rains it pours, but it also is like when I got into like this complacency mode where we just stayed around like 65 grand a month in revenue, just over in like 3 or 4 months in a row. And I was like, I got to do something because I live very frugally in my personal life. And like, like when you have enough money to live very easily, like then what's the big push or what's the big draw to step up to the next level?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because I'm not like, I know some people like they make another 50 grand this year. They, in their salary or their job, they're then going to spend another 50 grand in their personal life. So it's like they live at their means regardless of what their income is. And I don't do that. So like if let's say my income went up by 50 grand, my personal life might go up by like 5, because now I feel like,
Yeah.
okay, well, maybe I could get a little bit of a bigger apartment, which is a few $100s a month more extra, and like that's my big win.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Your lifestyle doesn't change if
it does,
since,
yeah,
yeah.
it doesn't change that much. So for me, I'm like, well, like I'm stuck in this complacency mode because I'm doing enough to get by, not get by, but like to do well. Let me do something differently, which is when I started to invest in these programs, and my whole mindset shifted all the way around, which is like, like let's just say like you make 250K in a year. Like 250K in a year is a lot of money, but you're not going to change the world or the industry with 250K a year. That doesn't mean shit. Now 250K a month.
Yeah.
Now you're starting to talk where you can actually start to invest in some things that will help out those around you and build wealth for your family. But 250K a year is going to be a nice start. But if you really, if most people actually want to accomplish the things that they say they want to accomplish, not what they believe they want to accomplish, because I think everybody talks a big game, but they don't actually believe it.
Yeah.
Then 250K a year is not going to do it. So you got to invest and do bigger things. But most people are afraid to take that leap, and they'd rather not lose 5 grand than invest 5 grand, hoping that it's going to turn into 50 grand. They're just so risk averse and loss averse that they won't even bother.
Yeah. So I got a question for you. So you mentioned investing. How many people you know that don't really talk about money do you think they're actually in the stock market? Do you think it's more of a privacy thing, or do you think it's just they don't really know anything about it? Because I have an answer in my head about my circle, but I'm interested to see because you're a little older and probably have more friends that are invested.
A lot of my friends are invested in some manner, but I'm also like the ones I'm thinking of. Like we also talk about money.
Hmm.
I can't
Yeah.
really think. I guess the people that I think of that like, if I ask them about money, they shy away from it.
Hmm.
I would say it's probably mixed, but those
Hmm.
that I talk to about money, everybody is invested in something, whether something like Bitcoin, even it's still something. But most people that I know that we talk about some money at some manner, like my old roommate, like he does very well. I know he does very well. I have no idea how much because he doesn't talk about money, but I know he makes money like off the stock market, off Bitcoin. Like he made like 40 or 50 grand off Bitcoin. Yeah, like, but the only reason he told me that was because I had like pride out of him, and he wouldn't even
Yeah.
tell me I was like, well, what'd you buy it at? He's like, this is what I bought it at. And I was like, what'd you sell it at? He's like, this is what I sold it at. I'm like, how many Bitcoins did you have? He was like, like a few. And I was like, so what is that, like 50 grand? He's like, yeah, about that. So like it was still
Yeah.
very like, I'm like, look, bro, it's a fact. Like just say it. Like it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm asking you about it. So I guess long story short, the people that are open about money with talking with me, all of them invest in the stock market or something that is supposed to generate wealth. And those that are very shy about it, I would say it's probably 50-50.
Yeah. But same thing with me. A lot of people that they're very open about it, not afraid to say anything. They're very open even about talking about it. But when it comes down to like, I have a couple people that you got to pry it out of you. Like you got to pry out like what they make, what they're looking to do, what's a good salary for them, like try even to help them out. They don't tell you anything, and they end up being like, they're not invested. They always are asking questions about it, but it's like almost like a sense of sneaky, and it's like you said before, like people want to help people, but it's like, I can't help you if you're sneaky about it. But yeah, I find it so interesting. It's almost like if you were in the stock market and you didn't check your portfolio every week or every day, but just like trusted the stock market was doing well. It's like you wouldn't do that. It's crazy. It's the same thing about not realizing your year to year, or uh, you know if you're losing or if you're winning. It's crazy.
Yeah, especially like to me, like I won't look at like for the retirement stuff because like that's, I mean, I'm not gonna pull that out the stock, for 30 years. So like
Yeah.
I'm okay with like letting that slide to the side, but the stuff that like pays it's like you checking to see if like like you got like the payroll came through. Like every so often, you might want to double check that you're actually getting paid. Like things like that. But
Yeah.
a lot of people just when you own a business, it just goes by the wayside very fast. Like you got so many other things. And I interviewed a guy today that, on the podcast, we talked about being comfortable with all the stuff and like knowing your stuff. And we talked about the idea that like when you sign up to run a business, that's the day that you get rid of your right to say, I don't want to do sales, I don't want to do marketing, I don't want to do HR, I just want to build. Well, that's fine, but go work for somebody else. Because if you're not willing to invest in yourself, then that makes no sense. And like with contractors, like the number one most complained problem about themselves is they say, I procrastinate, which I personally don't understand. And because that was another thing that the Tommy guy brought up was like, your reason why you started a business can't like, oh, I just don't work well for somebody else. Like that's not a reason. Like not being able to work for somebody else is different than being entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
Like there's a huge difference in that. And like, it's the same thing with like being an entrepreneur versus being entrepreneurial. Like those are two very different things. Like being an entrepreneur means you physically own your own business, but being entrepreneurial means that you have the savvy and you understand how money works to grow a business. So it's like they derive from the same word, but they're two completely different things. And everybody says, where they say like, I'm an entrepreneur, that doesn't mean that you're entrepreneurial. That just means that you technically own a business.
Yeah.
So, and that's how it's like in the CSA when people get like their black belt. They're like, yeah, I got a black belt. Doesn't mean that you're any good at selling. It just means that you did 200 role plays. Like, good job. Or like in school, like you got an A in this class. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're super smart naturally. It just means that you figured out how to make the class work.
You good at memorization.
Yeah, exactly. Like the SAT, like you don't have to be brilliant to do on the SAT. You got to be able to sit there for 8 hours straight and know how to like kind of play the game a little bit, and know what to study. So that's the same thing, with all this, is that like just because you started a business doesn't mean that you're entrepreneurial. Because if the first thing that you do is, and I hear this from people that we built websites for, Logan, I don't want to do the marketing, I don't want to do this. And that's fine. You can outsource that stuff, but you at least got to know the basics of it, like how the fundamentals of it works. Because otherwise, this is why a lot of contractors, spend a few $100s a month on SEO. And then after a year, they get mad and they're like, because nothing works. It's like, well, do you know the basics of it? Like if this is your biggest expense in your business and you have no idea just the fundamentals of how it works, isn't that kind of a bad deal? It's like me paying a bookkeeper or a CPA, but not even understanding what accounts payable versus accounts receivable are. Like, I don't need to know exactly everything, but like just from a basic money out, money in standpoint, like I should know that before hiring that out. And that's what a lot of people skip with the marketing stuff, is they don't even try. And then if they do hire a marketing company and it doesn't work, they get mad, but they're not mad that it doesn't work. They're mad because they don't understand why it doesn't work and they're too embarrassed to ask. So they just say, screw it, you're gone.
Yeah.
So
No,
it's kind of a tangent on the money thing, but yeah.
Yeah, no. But to bring it back to the money thing, I actually have a question. So do you think being comfortable with talking about money is a very important characteristic to being entrepreneurial, not just an entrepreneur, but entrepreneurial, say that right?
Yes, to me, yes, you need to be, especially with other entrepreneurs, like other people that are in your space. Because if we're building a website for $9,800 and there's another website person down the road and they're building it for $980, like they're in the same space. Like I should probably know that. Like I want to talk to that person, figure out like, what are you doing differently? So like, I'm big on numbers because I want to figure out because like numbers don't lie. Like that's the one thing that is nice. And that's like, I think why a lot of billionaires still want to make a lot of money, because at a certain point, like Jeff Bezos has, he's checked all the boxes.
Yeah.
But like your income and how big your company is, that's your scorecard. That's how you can that's how Bezos can go against Zuckerberg and go, okay, who's got the better company? And there's a bunch of metrics, but at the end of the day, like this money metric is one that like, it's pretty black and white. Like either you make more or you don't. So that's like the other side of it with being an entrepreneur, is like, knowing like that's like your scorecard. But I think to be entrepreneurial, I think you have to be comfortable talking money, because otherwise you're going to try to do this whole thing alone, and you're never, it's not going to work out nearly as well, which is not something a true entrepreneur would do.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's one of those, it's got to be up there. And I think this is turned into a plug for CSA, but the CSA group, I think that's one of the big things, just working with them, that I've learned, is that everyone's very open about money, and they have to be. If you're not, you don't succeed in the group. You have to be very open about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, with you, like, how open are you with your friends with money?
I'm pretty open. I'm very open. It's not like I flaunt it, like say, oh yeah, I got a big paycheck or a big bonus this week. But like, if they ask me a question, I'm not afraid to answer it honestly, and to the most dollar that I know. It's but I'm not out there flaunting it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I know, like, with like corporate jobs, like, you're not supposed to talk about that. And even like back
Yeah.
at Indeed, it was odd, like, you weren't supposed to talk about it, but we all knew each other's commission structures, and we all knew, like, there was literally a dashboard in front of you, like in front of you every single day at all times in the day. So you knew how much commission you made, or like how much your total revenue was in sales. So I knew, like, okay, if this is what it is and the commission's 15%, I can do the math. But it was still like, you didn't really bring it up. And I don't know if it's because you didn't bring it up because you kind of knew and it didn't need to be brought up, because it was literally like sitting in front of you every single day of the week, or not. But even still, like, it was one of those taboo subjects that, like, you just like didn't really talk about. And it was odd, because in a sales role, like, that's really what most people are motivated by, is the money.
Yeah, your commission is what you're motivated on. But yeah, I think it's an HR thing. But like, still, I mean, if you figure it out, HR is not going to get back to you, so they can't. It's not a violation if you figure it out. But
Yeah, and a lot of times, like, when I talk about like what I've spent on like investing or like getting better, it's more so I'm trying to normalize it, both to myself but also to everybody else out there. Because, like, to some people, stroking a check for $3,000 is like the biggest business investment ever. And which is a great start, but like, if that's your litmus test of, man, this thing is more than $3,000, like, this is too much money, like, it's going to be tough to grow fast. So I think it really comes down to it. And that's like the other thing, is like, when I talk to contractors where they're like, well, I got to like look at the finances, I got to do this, I got to do that. Like, I know it's a BS reason, but at the same time, like, it always surprises me, like, when people do very large amounts of income, but then they themselves they're not willing to invest, they're not willing to put up the money. So it's always odd to me that, like, that's the case. But maybe they figured out something that I didn't, because that's, they're much bigger than I am. But at the same time, like, maybe they could have gotten there in a a third the time, instead of growing steady Eddie the whole way.
Yeah, I think it could be like a choice if they're a little frugal with their money, or they they want to put it somewhere else or whatever it is. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
Well, it's like Graham Stephan. I mean, so Graham Stephan, for everybody listening, he's a YouTuber. He's very open about how much he makes. He's very open about what he spends his money on. I mean, how do you think he stays motivated, Alex? Because he's worth like $6 or $7 million. He's 29 years old, and he effectively probably lives off 80 grand a year. So how do you think he stays motivated when we both know how much he makes? And also, do you judge him knowing how much he makes?
No. Well, I mean, the basis of his YouTube channel is basically like, he's a lot of like saving money and like helping other people to just like find that kind of same avenues as he did, like buy a Tesla for $0 or whatever he bought. So I think he stays motivated in the help aspect. I think knowing that his money and his wealth is kind of his, I don't want to say advantage over everybody, but it's like, that's his authority, that people trust him because he makes this much. You know what I mean? So if he continues to make that much money and more money, people will trust him more, and then ergo his channel grows and he makes more money. So I think that's what motivates him. But I do really think the help, because if you have a YouTube channel, you want to help people. That's what I look at it.
So is it weird that, like, for us, I mean, like, our 3-year vision, which has our top line revenue, our bottom line revenue, is that weird for like me to put out there publicly?
No, I don't think so. I think it's like a corporate company. I mean, if they're publicly traded, you basically know if they're doing well or not. But for like, I watch a lot of Bar Rescue, as you guys probably know by now, and the employees have no idea they're about to get shut down in a week. Like that. That's kind of the opposite end, where it's like, well, I would like to know. So if I want to know that, you know, if he's willing to let me know the top money when we're doing well, then it goes hand in hand. I'd love to know that too, because it also lets you know that you're doing well. And we're not shutting down tomorrow. Yeah.
It's also a tough thing though, because that's like an embarrassment factor. But at the same time, like if you went to your employees and said, look, we got about a week's left of cash. Like, I don't think like some of them might bail and some of them might go, okay, great, let's step up. And I bet those that are going to bail already doing very minimal of a job anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And those that are willing to step up are going to step up even more and probably could really help you out. So, yeah.
It goes back to being comfortable about talking about money. If you're comfortable about it, you'd be like, hey, I screwed up. I'm failing. Like, look for another job or step up. Help us out.
And it's also, I know for me, it's also easier talking, like I'm okay talking money, but it's even easier talking about it with like other entrepreneurs, because it's kind of like that man in the arena quote, where it's like, it's really the man, the person who's actually doing it, who's like, I forget the exact quote, but it's like marred by dirt and dust and stuff. But long story short, it's like when you're in that zone and you're in that spot, like it's very easy for us to sit here and judge all their better throws that, Brady could have made last year, but the only people that really understand what he's going through are the other quarterbacks in the league. So like, that's really what it comes down to. So like, that's why I look at it with like other entrepreneurs, where it's like, it's much easier talking about it because like we're both in the same spot in essence.
Yeah, that's why alcoholics go to AA meetings with other alcoholics.
Yep.
Because you try to talk to them, you'd be like, I'll just drink in moderation. But
yeah, just stop. Like, what do you mean you can't stop? Like, just chill.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Just stop when you want to throw up. Stop. So
yeah, it's okay. Like, like it's not. Yeah. So, all right. Well, cool. Well, are we good on this money topic?
I'm good. Yeah. I feel more confident. I'm gonna tell everybody how much I make now.
Good. Just put that on your LinkedIn, and I'll endorse you for it.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah.
All right. And just so you guys know, if you guys want to make more money, head over to contractorgrowthnetwork.com. We have some killer websites that are guaranteed. You heard that, guaranteed to actually make you more money. Contractorgrowthnetwork.com. See ya.